Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Beyond Sunday podcast. We are so glad that you're here around the table with us. We've got a couple of special people, special friends. We got my buddy, Josh Hensley.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, worship pastor extraordinaire. I guess that means Evan wants to go next.
That's
Evan's
right.
across the table, clearing his throat, coming back from Guatemala, just sicker than a dog. You getting better?
I'm over it, I think, and I hope the rest of the team.
I don't think it's over you. I think it just wants to
I'm done
hang
with
on.
it. I've
You
had
look
enough.
better today.
You do look better
today.
Yeah.
You're kind of looking green when you came
Yeah.
back a little bit.
I was not feeling good, and many of our people on our trip weren't even last week. So y'all pray it's done because it was
worth
it
it.
was rough, y'all.
It's worth it. So we got Josh, we got Evan, and then right diagonal across from me, we got Paxton Red.
Hey.
What's up? So here we go, talking about church, talking about going beyond Sunday, and I kind of got to be up on Sunday, so I'll give you a little quick recap. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited. We've been on a break. Looking at the sermons, and I was thinking, listening to last week's episode, I loved it because it was on missions, and the previous weeks were, looking back and looking ahead. But I kind of miss talking about the sermons.
Right.
So
Just getting back into the normal groove of stuff.
here we are. We've been on a new sermon series per se since the beginning of the year called "Follow the Leader."
Yep.
And this past week was what, third week of that?
Third week of the year, only our second sermon though, because we missed one because of weather.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think we're actually going to record that sermon. Kevin had talked to me about it because anytime we do a series, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. And actually, Kevin just got back from planning for a year and a half, maybe. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Maybe more than that.
He's a machine.
Crazy. A lot of people, if you did over the holidays, you saw that there was an opportunity for you to kind of submit some things as Kevin was starting to plan. And there's actually a team. Michael and Paxton, you guys went and did some stuff with him. Michael, did you actually go?
I didn't get to go. I had something come up last minute that I could not get away from, so I didn't get to go this year.
Well, that was the whole weekend of kind of the Snowmageddon, too.
Yeah, it was great.
How was it going up there in the snow, Paxton?
Going up there was fine. Coming back was a little sketchy. So I'm thankful we made it back. But it was an incredible process. And I want everybody to know that submitted things that Kevin really takes that serious. You know, he really values people's input. So
I love watching his process. Like,
yeah.
his whole office basically went with him.
It disappears.
The computer, the stack of books, I mean, his desk is cleared. And he goes up there and he just kind of gets away and he hears from God and he truly takes it serious. He sets all of his stuff out and allows God to speak to him. And so I'm excited to see what's to come. But Follow the Leader is a sermon series that he had planned last year, even in his planning. So we're kind of following that. And we missed that first week, so I think we're going to record that because that's a very important part of the whole series.
Yeah, it kind of builds on each other.
Yeah.
So, well, this week we talked about Follow the Leader, and we talked about how Jesus places a priority on generosity. And we used two stories. We looked at two stories, kind of compared and contrasted them. Luke chapter 18 is the story of the rich young ruler who's very rich. Jesus gives him a command, hey, be generous, and Bible says he walks away sad, for he was very rich. Luke chapter 19, it's another rich person, Zacchaeus, and Zacchaeus has the total opposite response to Jesus' presence. He does, in fact, live a generous life. And so we talked about three things really, really quickly on generosity and what it means to follow the leader. Number one, we talked about how generosity and greed cannot coexist. We possess one of those things and not the other. So we called to evaluate, hey, what is my life more marked by, generosity or greed? We talked about how generosity multiplies the kingdom. Can you imagine being one of the recipients of Zacchaeus knocking on your door, giving you a 4x return on your taxes? Wouldn't that be great? And then lastly, we talked about how generosity is not our idea, but it is his idea. And the whole idea of being generous and generosity is when you and me are just simply willing to give more of something. So that's kind of where we went Sunday.
You know, I was thinking as you were talking, I don't think there's been a time in my life where I felt that God was calling me to be generous, that I didn't see some kind of return or reward.
Yeah.
Even though I may have not expected it, and even though it may not have returned to me monetarily,
Right.
There was a blessing in that.
There's an immediate joy that happens when you've been generous.
And you don't miss it. I mean, because that reward outweighs anything that money would have brought.
Yeah, there's something about the perspective of this isn't mine anyway, right? I think,
Freeing.
yeah, when we have that kind of perspective, it's easy to give something away that's not yours. And so the idea of being generous with things that the Lord has blessed us with, yeah, it's His.
Yeah. You know, Steve Buttram, our assistant pastor, kind of told me this in between services, and it rocked me. He said, I want to share something with you that one of my professors told me. He said, Jesus commands the rich young ruler to sell it all, and he doesn't. But then the example that we have with Zacchaeus is Zacchaeus on his own said, I'm going to give away half. And Jesus said it was accepted. And he said, here's the difference. It was just the heart. Had nothing to do with the amount, just had everything to do with whether or not somebody was willing to step into and even entertain the idea of generosity. And before Zacchaeus even does it, right, Jesus says, to this house salvation has come today. So, call to be generous.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I have struggled with in my life is the idea that I don't have really any extra to give. My family, and probably most of us, live on a budget to some degree. We use the Every Dollar app in our house, and so we're kind of...
Shout out Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey. Right now, our church is going through financial peace. So if you're not involved in that class and want kind of a control on your finances and kind of a biblical look at that, you can sign up for that class. But that's on the side.
Can I just say, too, I love who's teaching financial peace. Like, just Kevin and Jody Terrell, you talk about some real people right there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they will tell you how it is, and I love it. I think that they will be perfect for that class.
Well, they are generous people.
Absolutely.
I've seen it. I've experienced it myself. But as we look at our finances, we don't have a lot of fluff to just kind of to give away. And so generosity is almost this commitment or this sacrifice that we make. And maybe it's we choose to go without a certain thing so that we can give more, or maybe we pull our savings back just a little bit further than we're comfortable doing. There's never been a time, with all of that said, that I felt like we couldn't give, that we did, that I found myself wanting.
Right. I had a similar experience when I first started really giving. You know, I wasn't somebody who was tithing from the age that they first started making money. You know, I knew I should have, but I didn't do that. And there's always an excuse you can find to not give, right? That's kind of what you're talking about, Josh. And I kept making those excuses over and over again and never made a ton of money. But I remember the moment I started giving, I just said, I'm going to tithe. I'm going to do it right. And I have literally never missed that money. I've never went without. And even in the opposite, I feel better with my finances now than I ever have, because I'm giving, because I know I can, and I'm glad that I do. So you never want, or you're never needing once you start doing that.
Yeah.
You know, generosity, it never shows up when we reach a certain level, right?
Right.
It's attitude, it's a heart behind it.
Yes.
And Evan, you can tell me if you found this similar. I was on my first international mission trip, and met these guys in Nicaragua who were mowing a field, multiple acre field, and they were mowing it with machetes. So like they're bent over, mowing this field with a machete. And I was asking them, I said, tell me, how much are you making doing this? Because these guys are out there every single day. They said, we make $1 a day of your money. And it blew my mind that these guys were making $1 a day. And then they invited me over to their house.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we want to share a meal with you.
Yep.
They make $1 a day, and they're willing to share with me.
Yes.
And that blew my mind. Did you experience similar things in Guatemala?
Oh yeah, definitely. There was, just an overwhelming sense of generosity. People always wanting to give you something or give back or inviting you in. There was a day where I wasn't with them, but a large part of our group is walking the streets in this Guatemalan village. And there was this lady on the side making bread, and she probably, that was her whole living, making that bread. But she gave a piece. She made a piece for each one of the members. There's a picture of them all eating and holding that bread. And there's probably 15 people there, and she did not let them pay a single, dollar for all that bread. That's just the generosity mindset that they have, and one that we could adopt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not out of excess.
Right. It's not.
It's just what I'm willing to give whatever I've got.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think that is what God calls us to do.
Yeah.
To be a generous people. Michael, I'm thinking about your third point. Generosity is not our idea, it's His.
Yeah.
God modeled generosity through Jesus. Mm-hmm. Jesus modeled generosity with His life, just giving it to people that needed it.
Yeah.
Jesus gave up His life so that we could have life. And while we may not give up our lives, He does call us to give up some things that we hold on to, and money's one of those. Time is one of those. The more that we follow Jesus, and the more that we think about that question that we're all asking at the end of each of our sermons, how closely are you following? It's these things that we adapt into our lives so that we can look more like who?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
If we look more like Jesus, then the world around us knows that there's purpose behind our generosity. Mm-hmm. I would hate to think that I would give to something without a purpose.
Yeah.
Just giving to give, that makes me a noble individual. But giving with the purpose that they would see Jesus in us is far, far beyond anything that we can even comprehend as a return.
Yeah. Generosity doesn't just do that on the outside, but I believe that generosity does something to us on the inside as well. I believe the first and primary thing that it does on the inside is it will actively protect your heart from the sin of greed, from just the sin of trying to have two masters, like Jesus was talking about in Matthew chapter 6. And man, if you don't think that money is a big deal and that it can't so easily deceive you, what does the scripture say? That the love of money is the root of all evil. So how do we make sure that we just cut the root of all evil out in our lives? I think we can do it just by being generous. And let me just say this. I don't think that we spend near enough time teaching our children and teaching our students about how important generosity is. I think that is something that we should teach.
A lot of times it's something like, oh, that's kind of an adult topic. We'll get to that later. That's
or even
how we
we're
treat
ashamed of it.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to ask a kid to give money.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad when they fed the 5,000, they asked a kid to give.
That's right, yeah.
A bunch of people would have been hungry without that Lunchable.
Yeah. I told my kids when we first started talking about giving to the church and tithing and things of that sort, I told them that it's important. And I remember them asking me, does the church really need my money? Mm-hmm. And I said, no, the church doesn't need your money, but you need to give it. Like, that's the difference. Like, you need it more than the church does. You need to give it more than the church needs you to give it. And I think that's definitely true, right? God has blessed you so that you can be a blessing to someone else, even if it's as small as giving a little bit to the church through your offering.
Did you guys, when you were growing up and you went to church with your parents, did you ever ask them for money that you could give?
Oh, yeah.
My mom always gave me like a quarter. She's like, put this in the offering plate. And I look at that and I go, that's kind of a practice that she instilled in me. Now, at that age and with a quarter, it wasn't exactly what the heart needed to be in it, but it was that practice of, I am giving something to God. And I think as a parent now, I like to be a little bit more intentional with my kids. So any birthday money, any Christmas money, we have a conversation like, let's go ahead and pull out what God needs from this. Benjamin, my son, he's actually started a business collecting trash in our neighborhood.
Let's go.
And rolling trash cans to the curb. And that was one of the first conversations that we had was, as you get this money in, go ahead and, give God the portion that he deserves and that he's asked for.
Yeah.
Have you seen your kids respond to that?
They
liked
love it.
Yeah.
They love it. It's like, I got something to give. That same thing that I felt when my mom gave me a quarter walking into church is connected now to what the heart
Yeah.
of giving looks like.
Well, and I think we forget that giving and tithing, it is an act of worship.
100%.
It should not be a suggestion. I know I'm going to offend some people with this. It should not be a suggestion for a believer. It should be read as a command. And that's just that's my personal thought on it. And it's an act of worship. Mm-hmm. And so, it is the equivalent of coming into church and just saying, I refuse to sing. I refuse to give God worth, to give him honor, to give him glory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing that this sermon series has been about.
Yeah.
It's aligning ourselves so that we can be pleasing to God and we can look like Jesus. Pastor Steve talked about digging into the Word, and that is a form of worship to God. We're investing our minds into our relationship with Jesus Christ. Tithing and giving and generosity is a part of that. But is it all right if we move on?
Oh yeah.
This week,
Sure, we can move on.
let's talk about kind of the upcoming sermon that we have, and it's an exciting thing.
Are you excited about it, Josh? You seem really excited about this sermon for some reason.
Well, I'm excited because it's like every 2 years I get to preach a little bit.
Let's go.
And that's about all I want. And this time it's even better because I get to just like be up there with Paxton.
Yeah. Tag team.
Tag team.
How do you
So
feel
are
about
you-
it, Paxton?
I'm not as excited as Josh is. No, I'm kidding.
Are you going to sing too and then preach, or
You
how's
know
it gonna
what?
work?
You're gonna. I guess you'll see on Sunday.
He has no
You
idea
should
yet. He ain't
sing
got it
the whole
planned out.
sermon.
I've always had a disdain for singing preachers because I wanted to be one.
Right.
Well,
It's not fair.
Duet
It's not fair.
incoming.
well, it's. I will tell you, there is a portion of it that's going to be music.
That's right.
Outside of me leading worship.
Oh,
Josh, I love when you preach. So I've asked your son, Aaron, on multiple occasions, Aaron, what's been the most impactful thing that you remember about Newark Fellowship? And he always goes back to the last time you preached on Romans chapter 12. So I'm excited for it, man. Are you going over Romans chapter 12 again?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
New content,
No,
ladies and gentlemen.
This sermon is actually going to be on. It's a surprising topic.
Oh, yeah. Imagine, why would Josh be involved in a sermon on follow the leader, looking at Jesus' example? What do you think it is?
I know what it is, so I'm not going to say.
I have not looked at the calendar, but I'm just going to take a big guess and say maybe worship.
It's worship.
Okay.
I think Kevin thinks I'm an expert on it just because I lead it. But we're going to be looking at not just musical worship, and I think that's one of the misconceptions that we get, and it's a term that it's fine. I think it's a church word. In no other world that we live in do we say worship.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go worship UK, even though a lot of the things that I do when I'm watching a game looks a lot like worship. But you've heard all of those things. But we're going to be talking about what is worship and how did Jesus model that in his life.
Yeah.
And of course, there's going to be some music.
It's going to be good, man. I always love when you preach because you always do something
Super
a little bit,
creative.
Yeah, creative, a little bit different than the normal
No pressure,
passage.
Josh.
Yeah.
So maybe this singing thing you're gonna do, that's it. I don't know, but you every time I've seen it before, you've done some sort of like object lesson,
Yeah.
which I love. So
There'll be something like that this time.
No pressure.
yeah,
No
But
pressure.
that's coming up this week. And we actually, see, this will be the last sermon in the series, right? Because we start a new sermon series in February that looks at the future vision of new work.
It's exciting.
It's
Yeah,
really
it is.
exciting. We're reached that point where
We've got an inside scoop, and it's just been like
Ready to
all I
tell
can
people.
do. Yeah, I'm ready to tell people. It's just been all I can do to contain it.
it's
It's like,
bubbling over.
yeah, I'm the worst person to tell that you got a surprise for somebody.
Did anybody's
Don't tell
parents
me.
ever can like vegetables and different things like that? Maybe you
Ever.
guys
Still do. What are you talking about?
I know Peggy does and Phil. But I remember I knew that it was pressurized when what? That little thing was like
Yeah.
whistling on top. I knew that things were going great, and that's what I feel like right now. Like I've reached that point where the pressure is like it's there, and the whistling has happened, and I'm ready to let it out.
Yeah.
Well, let it
Michael's
out, son.
laughing at
Let
me.
it out.
Go ahead, whistle for us.
I can't.
It's coming Sunday, y'all. Josh is going to be whistling. Here we go.
All right. One thing that we approached back in December was we started gathering questions. And guys, I think I'm going to make this part of a weekly segment. We're going to call it a segment in our podcast. We're going to answer somebody's question that they have submitted. If you're listening and you haven't submitted a question, you're like, well, how do I submit a question? I got one. You can do that on our app. If you look at weekly announcements, right under the podcast, there is submit questions for the podcast. So it's as easy as that. But we have had 2 in the last month, and we haven't addressed them yet. So I usually don't share names, but this is one of my favorite people. Ashley Clark has submitted a question to the podcast, and here it is. This is what she asks. If God hadn't called you into ministry, what would you be doing today as a career?
Okay, I don't want to answer this question first, but I just want to say something, and then I can answer the question at the very end after you guys go. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, let me tell you something about Miss Ashley Clark. So it was probably a week and a half ago. I'm getting ready for bed, cutting all the lights off in the room, cutting the fans on in the room. We got like a vortex going in my room when me and Lena go to sleep. And I sneezed out of nowhere, and then I have this searing pain in my lower left back. And those of you who know me, you know I'm like super paranoid about health stuff. So immediately I think I've just ruptured an organ. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to die. So I lay down, woke up that night like 10 different times just in pain in my back. Ended up calling Ashley. Y'all, she's awesome. And I was like, Ashley, I think I'm dying.
Fixed you right up, did she?
She hooked me up, bro. Had a rib. Sneezed my
I was
rib
going to
out.
say it was a rib. It had to have been a
Sneezed
rib.
a rib out.
How do you sneeze a rib out? That's what I want to know. But I did. So now I just have this
crazy.
super paranoid fear
Ashley-
of sneezing.
Ashley has saved me a couple of times too.
She's put your hip back in, man.
Yeah, she put my hip back in place once. When I tore my calf to shreds last year.
Last
and
year at this time, I mean, you were
right around this time, yeah, right
hobbling
before,
around.
yeah. And then recently, I've done something to my toe. So Ashley, she's just the best. Anybody got a problem? You got a ailment of some sort? Go see Ashley.
Ashley, thank you for being the doctor for all the pastors of
Yes.
New Work Fellowship.
No, you just wait until she does what she does to me. She sends me an invoice.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Well.
I get all those co-pays I have to pay.
I try.
I'm just kidding. She does not.
I try to pay her, but she doesn't take it. So.
But yeah, there's been many times where I have to find her and like, Ashley, something's wrong, and she throws me on the ground and like and gives me a good elbow
Yep.
to the back, and it's fixed.
Yep.
It's
you
good.
know, I'm thankful she's generous.
She's very
She is.
generous
No,
with
she's
her knowledge, her skills. It's great. But let's go back actually to the question that she asked. If God hadn't called you into ministry, what would you be doing for a career?
So my path was taking me towards drug and alcohol rehabilitation. I had a desire to work in the counseling area, and so I wanted to do drug and alcohol rehabilitation counseling.
I didn't know that, man.
That's
Did
That's
you?
where I was headed.
I mean, how far did you get down that path?
I was only 15 when I was called to
Okay.
ministry. So
Yeah, so not far.
Yeah.
So you didn't go the sports medicine route.
no,
Okay.
Well, for me, everybody give me a drum roll. This is gonna be pretty profound. I was gonna be
Hey,
in.
we'll add that in post.
Okay, perfect. I was gonna do construction. Yeah,
Wow.
that's it. I was that was what I wanted to do in high school. I didn't never wanted to go to college. Just wanted to work, and got out of high school. Worked for a guy doing insulation for a while. Then I became a roofer for a long time. Then I flipped houses for about a year up until the point where I was called to ministry.
For
So
those of you that don't know, Evan can pretty much fix anything.
Yeah.
It ticks me off. It makes me angry.
when I used to live with Michael, I used to fix all the stuff at his house.
Yeah, we had this agreement. There would be no rent that was paid, but I could ask
remember
him, I could ask him to fix like one thing a week, and Lena just kept adding stuff to the list, and I was like, "Stop it, leave him alone."
It's like Evan replaced a faucet one week and fixed an electrical problem, and
But
All
don't
stuff
call him to
was
fix
fun.
anything right now. He's way too busy with ministry.
Yeah.
handyman Evan.
He'll help you.
Well, I could try to fix things, but I really did love doing it. And I kind of miss working with my hands sometimes. Josh, you've talked about that, but yeah, that's what I was going to do. I probably would have owned my own business at some point, doing something like that. So,
Well, since Michael, you want to go last, I'm gonna go to mine. Kind of where I got serious thinking about what I wanted to do outside of like when I was 6 and wanted to be an archaeologist. I decided I wanted to do culinary arts, so I wanted to cook.
dude, yes.
I wanted to, like, I had already set my plans. I'm going to go to culinary arts school, and then I'll get out and be a chef because just I loved food. I loved the science of making food, what tasted good together, and working with different ingredients. And then I got called to ministry when I was 15.
Josh, I will say you do have an exquisite palate. Right? So if you're ever out to eat and Josh Hensley's with you and you don't know what to order, just order what Josh orders unless he wants like fruit on it, then don't do it. But
Josh can cook good too.
you can cook. Man,
And bake.
I haven't had one of your cakes in a long time. And
Listen, we're not talking about the cakes.
I'm about tired of it.
We don't talk about cakes anymore because I don't want to do any more cakes.
Your cakes are great. So,
All right, Michael, what?
all right, what did I want to do? Well, growing up in church, we had this guy that went to me and Evan's home church, and he was a plumber. And man, every time I saw him, he had a new car, and the first thing he'd do is buy a big old new set of tires and rims on it. And so, man, I just saw the kind of lifestyle they lived, and I thought, man, I want to be a plumber. And I had my slogan all worked out and everything.
What was the name of your? What was the name of
Well,
your?
I would knock on people's doors, or I would answer the phone hypothetically in my brain. And hey, thank you so much for calling Sharon Septic, where you call us and we scoop it out. How can we help you?
That's good, man.
That's pretty good. I mean, I was ready.
I mean
You
that.
think you could do that job actually?
No, I do not. There's no way.
That sounds like more like waste management rather than
That's pretty
plumbing.
much what a plumber is. I mean, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. There's new construction plumbers, and then there's the fix-it plumbers.
I want to be the clean plumber.
Right, the new construction. No, but Evan, to answer your question, man, my sense of smell is so sensitive. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
And I am thankful for all the plumbers that we have. So,
That's awesome.
We're all glad we're doing this, right?
yeah,
Absolutely.
Yes.
can't think of anything else I'd rather do. So,
Yeah, I can't imagine doing anything else.
no.
I think that I would be okay doing, being a chef. Mm-hmm. I think you'd be okay being a plumber, and you'd be okay doing construction, and you'd be okay doing some drug and alcohol rehabilitation with people. But when you have a call on your life and you feel like God has called you to the ministry,
Yeah.
specifically?
Especially after experiencing it. Like I would be fine if I had to go back. But after doing it for so long, man, the thought of like going back and doing that full time and not doing this, man, it just
So I think there's something inside of you that awakens when you start living out a calling. There's no question that our listeners and we could all go choose something else and be successful.
Right.
There's no question. But the question is, am I going to feel significant while I'm being successful? And that I think for me is what I couldn't deal with. Not that I'm not significant, but to just know that the work that we're doing is significant. Yeah. It's significant in the lives of people, not just the lives of people that we know, but in the lives of people that we're hopefully reaching, touching, encouraging, and that they're going to go on and do the same. And that to me is just the most fulfilling.
and not to say that those others aren't significant at all.
Exactly.
But
Well, I think you can definitely take a ministry approach to anything that
Yes.
you do.
100%.
And God,
I think you should. I think you
for
should.
sure, for sure. No matter what you do as an occupation, Jesus needs to be very evident in what you do.
Yep.
From day to day, and maybe it's not so blatant, but the way that you live your life and the way that you are generous towards people.
The truth is, we need evangelists in all those fields because we're not there. No. We need evangelists that are plumbers because we don't see plumbers every day. Things like that, in all those areas, and that should be everybody's call, no matter your occupation. So
Yeah, and I would love if you're listening. I know that everybody around a microphone right now has surrendered to the ministry, and maybe you're not feeling a ministry calling per se, but maybe you want to ask a question. How do I incorporate ministry into what I do? Feel free to call us. Feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to stop us on a Sunday morning or Wednesday and just ask us, because the more that we are conscious about it, the more that God will open those doors and reveal those opportunities for us to step into. And
that's a super exciting conversation just to think about.
Yeah.
And have you guys ever heard, I'm wrestling with my call to ministry?
Yeah.
Like, I've heard that so much over my lifetime, and I can pinpoint the time where I was. It wasn't so much of a black and white deal, like either I go this way or this way, but the call to ministry is a wrestle that you kind of involve yourself in, because a lot of times a call to ministry goes completely against everything that you prepared your life for. It goes
Or what your parents think.
Or what your parents think. That was a big thing. So what are you going to do for a job? Well, I'm going to do ministry.
Oh, how you gonna make money?
You're going to starve to death.
Yeah. I think we all are there or have been there, but maybe you're listening and you feel that same thing. Again, talk to us. A lot of times a call to ministry is something that is validated or encouraged by people that know you and see you and also see what you're going through.
And we would love to talk about that. That's one of my favorite conversations to have with any student.
Yeah.
Is about their call to ministry.
It's exciting. It's exciting. So,
well, it's been a great episode. I enjoy this every single week, just getting to talk with you guys and just the thought of being able to connect with our people outside of Sunday morning and Wednesday. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure that you like and subscribe to it so that you can get all of the updates when we publish it. We usually publish it on Wednesday. Sometimes we're a little bit delayed. Sometimes we miss a week, but every single time, if you subscribe to it, you'll get a notification that there is an episode published. You'll hear the sermons on recap, and you'll also hear this Beyond Sunday podcast. But we're glad that you listen. We're glad that you engage with us, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you later, everybody.
Adios.